Hey, if you're new here, my name is Ashley. Today I figured would be a good day to talk about the first week of school. I have such a huge list of activities and just different ideas. So if you feel like you need something fresh, or if you're a new teacher and you're like, I really don't know what to do with them the first week of school, hopefully you can find something from this list. So before I even get into it, I am going to try to leave everything linked in the description below. So there are some activities that there's like websites you could go to, or there's actual resources. So if you're just looking for inspiration, or if you just want something that literally you can just buy and print, I'll try to leave everything linked in the description below. And of course, if you have any questions, just let me know. I figured we would divide this into categories like games, getting to know you, social emotional, science, and things like that. So I figured let's start with the fun stuff and let's do games. So I really like to play games the first week of school. I also just like to introduce games that they'll probably see again. That way it's something they can look forward to. I especially like to play games like around the holidays, or if you have like 5 minutes at the end of the day. If you're lucky, you have 5 minutes at the end of the day. So the first one would be Mum Ball or Silent Ball. I've heard it called both. So the reason why I like this game is because they have to learn how to be completely silent. Like they have to learn to just literally not say a peep. And they basically just toss this very soft ball back and forth to each other. And how you get out is either A, you speak, B, you miss the catch, or you throw poorly. And so we also try to use this as a time to just like be compassionate and be kind to one another. Not everybody is an athlete, so that's why I have the throwing be like very gentle. You can toss it to someone that's very close to you. And over time, it's actually nice to see the kids that are not really athletic start to build their confidence with the game. However, during the first week of school, you can also use this as an opportunity to get to know each other. So I've done like a back to know you spin on this, where we'll all get in a circle and I'll say like, what's your favorite color? Toss it to someone. Blue. They toss it to someone else. Green. And once they answer, they sit down. So that way, you know, they get to have fun. They get to loosen up. Like something about bringing like a ball or like equipment and games into the classroom gets them to kind of just like loosen up a little bit, and you're able to see more of their personality. And then, yeah, they're just able to giggle and have fun. It also breaks the new kids out of their shell. So that would be number one. Number two, if you don't want to go like, if like something about like throwing a ball in the classroom really freaks you out, you could do four corners. And I know this is a popular one that a lot of people like to do in the classroom. There are so many free resources with like templates for four corners. So if you're not familiar, something will pop up on the screen, or you could always say it out loud, practice listening. Say like favorite food, pizza, fried rice, ice cream, salad. And then the kids like get into their corners. Again, this is another activity where I feel like it's a little bit different than like a pen and paper getting to know you activity, because they kind of get moving, they get to chit chat, they get to interact with each other. The third one, if you really don't want them like up and moving like that at all, it's just not conducive to your classroom, you could play Would You Rather. So again, I will link all of these resources below, but there are so many task cards. You could even just like come up with some like off the top of your head. Would you rather eat a carrot or a tomato? And it's like they can put up one finger, they can raise their hand. You could, whatever symbol you want to use for would you rather, you could also have them go to the left, go to the right. Number 4, this isn't exactly a game, but it kind of feels like one. I feel like it's a good classroom community activity. Put yourself in a circle or put yourself in a line, but you give them different criteria each time, and it forces them to have to talk to each other. It's also really interesting to do this activity because you get to see who your natural leaders are. There's always some kids that jump in and they're like, all right, what's your birthday? Or what is your, like, how do you spell your name? And they start like organizing everybody. You also get to see who's a little bit more quiet. Category number 2. I'm going to call this the social emotional learning section. So the very first one would be growth mindset. when I teach growth mindset, I don't just like to go over like growth mindset phrases, although that's a part of it, and like growth mindset conversations and ways of thinking, but I also like to teach them how the brain actually works and how we build habits and just like the neural pathways in the brain. It sounds like way more intense when I'm explaining it like this. I do have a kid-friendly reading comprehension that just like talks into the science in a more, it's like an upper elementary way. And I think that's a good thing for kids to learn. That way they understand, like, you're not stuck not being a math person, or you're not stuck struggling with math, or, whatever they feel like they struggle with, or whatever kind of like activates that like I'm not good enough phrasing. So I really like to do that. And as I said, there are also all these growth mindset activities where I have a whole blog post and I think I might have a whole other video. I know I have a blog post that goes into growth mindset activities if you want to take a look, which I feel like then leads me into the next activity, which would be affirmations. So I know a lot of teachers have affirmations in their classroom. They'll have like a cutesy affirmation station. I like to introduce what affirmations are, why they're kind of in the classroom, and you could also have them DIY their own affirmation cards. Like, what are some phrases that you feel like you want to say more often, or what's like a type of thinking that you want to adopt, and just like let them make their own cards. It's just fun. It's just like a fun, cutesy activity. You can literally just give them one sheet of paper. They can cut out 6 cards, write their phrases, decorate them, and it's up to them what they do with them. I feel like a lot of kids use them as bookmarks, and hey, that works. We'll take that. Activity number 3 for social emotional learning would be goal setting. Again, this is one of those things that could be a whole other video. Actually, I do have a whole other video, so again, I will link that. Goal setting activities are also really great because you can make a bulletin board out of them. So for example, there's this like shoot for the moon activity where they like fill out a little like plan for their goal, and then they put it on like a rocket, and then it becomes a bulletin board, and you can leave that up for the marking period, the trimester, whatever. It's up to you. Number 4 is a vision board. So this is a free resource in my Teachers Pay Teachers store, but you can literally do like a Google slide. You can just do like a piece of paper, have them draw, whatever. It's totally up to you. This one is just fun. Like, literally, I just let them dream. Like, what is the dream car? What is the dream house? What is the dream of this year? You can make it as like small or as big as you want. I kind of just let them like have the whole world because it initiates such good conversation, because some of the kids will be talking about like, oh, I would like to go to a Formula One race, or I really like this car, or I would love a pink house, and they just kind of get to chattering, and it's a good way to just break the awkwardness of the first day. Vision boards are really, really fun, and again, this could be made into a bulletin board, it can be made into a Google slide, it could be like a home project where they're literally like printing out race cars or printing out houses or whatever. And again, it can be small. You can make it school, like vision board for just this year, like getting on the soccer team or whatever. Okay, so next category, I guess I'm going to call this the getting to know you category. These are kind of like your typical activities that are done in the classroom. Of course, there's like the find a classmate who, and things like that. I'm not really going to talk into those too much because I feel like a lot of us know those, but the first one that I like to do is a jar of me. So again, this is another one that makes a really good bulletin board, but you essentially just give them a jar that's printed out, and it's up to you how thorough you want to go with this. I've seen people like print out pictures of the kids and they're like pretending they're in a jar and they glue themselves inside, and they are surrounded by all these things that they love. If you don't want to get into like the self-portrait or the printing photos, you can literally just give them a jar and like a photo of a jar, and they just fill it with pictures of things that they love. So the jar will have like basketball, it'll have a pencil because they like to draw, maybe it'll have a TV show or whatever. I guess technically you could turn that into a presentation. You could also have them bring in like a box. You could do do like a box of me and like show it to the class. I try to lean away from that stuff at the beginning of the year because I feel like the beginning of the year is already so awkward. So I personally prefer to go like the bulletin board route with the photo of them and like printed out stuff, and then we hang it up. And I like when they pretend like they're in the jar. I think it's really cute. Option number 2, if you're not into the jar imagery, you could also do a graffiti wall. So you just give them like a photo of like a black and white wall and let them just like tag it with all the things that they like. They can draw characters, print characters, depending on if they're at home or in the classroom. They could put their name in like bubble letters or block letters and just let them like literally like graffiti the piece of paper. Number 3, again, this is a classic, but I just feel like I don't want math to be forgotten about. Math About Me. I know lots of people have heard about Math About Me, but I feel like it has to have a mention. The kids answer questions about themselves, and then they work backwards to make equations. So for example, Mrs. Bidney is 34 years old. 34 is 30 plus 4 equals, and then the age. And then you could also have them like trade with each other, swap. You could put them on the whiteboard and have people solve it. Okay, number 4 is a letter to my future self. This is a good opportunity to get them writing. This is a good opportunity to just kind of like review letters. You could also just kind of let them, just give them a piece of paper and let them talk to their future selves. They'll probably ask a lot of questions like, oh, are you good at this? Did you get on this? Da da da. But you could also encourage them to like be more motivating, to lift themselves up. Just be like, remember, around March, we're always so tired. Like what's something you could say to yourself in March to get yourselves excited? Letter to my future self is also really fun to open up if you're in a testing subject right before they get into testing. Because depending on how motivating it is, it's either a good laugh or it's motivating and it's kind of just a fun activity. Technically, you could do letter to my future self and you could go even further. I'm just like, this is just like off the top of my head. I haven't totally looked into this, but I know there are websites where you can write a letter to your future self and then put the school email in there and schedule it to send like 3 years later. So that would actually be an interesting thing. That would be an interesting activity to try, and they could ask themselves questions in like middle school. I'll look into that. I'll look into see if there's like a kid-friendly website. I know there are a bunch of websites like that exist. I just don't know how like elementary friendly they are, so I'll look into that. Okay, so the next category would be science or STEM. I know a lot of people like to do Save Fred, and I do think Save Fred is a really good activity. I think the thing for me is I don't like to have to run out and like buy all of these things and set up all of these things. So I prefer to do things like build a skyscraper. And you want them with note cards. So you give them like, let's say 50 note cards if up to you the amount that you want to give, but let's say you give 50 and they want to build a skyscraper as tall as they can. And so this is a good opportunity, and you set a timer too. Sorry, I'm like all over the place explaining this activity. Hold on. Okay. Skyscraper with note cards. You give them like 50 note cards and you set a timer. Have them work in groups, have them work in partners, depending on the age, and depending on how many note cards you have. Set a timer and let them try to build it as tall as possible. You'll see that they kind of struggle to figure out like, okay, how are we going to balance these? How are we going to do this without tape? Like, how do we get them to stand up? So they'll kind of fumble around for the first couple minutes. Again, we're promoting growth mindset. And then once the timer goes off, have them measure it, like length, width, it's just fun. It's just an exciting activity. They don't have to win anything. It can literally just be fun. The second activity would be build a bridge. I feel like this one, you could use even less supplies. You just put 2 books next to each other and they need to build a bridge from one to the other using, it's up to you what supplies. If you Google this, you'll see like people have done this with a different amount of supplies. Some people just do with paper. Like you literally have to build a bridge from here to here that can hold 10 pennies, only using paper. So they'll try to fold up the paper into these like really tight bridges. And yeah, it's just a good opportunity to get them thinking. It's not the end of the world if they can't make it, but again, it's just fun introducing constraints. It's fun introducing materials, the growth mindset, and just like getting into that like STEM where we like experiment, we try, we implement, we see what the results are. Activity number 3 for science would be science talk. So I know that there are some free resources out there that already have this, but this is something you could also make yourself. Just like a picture of things, like a picture of soil, a picture of like a beaker with liquid, with the questions, what do you notice? And this is especially good if the kids are younger and in elementary, but like what things do you notice about the soil? How do you think it feels? Also, what do you wonder? Like, what are you wondering about the soil? What are you wondering about the liquid in the beaker? What questions do you have? How would you describe it? And again, these are just good opportunities. My camera's blinking, that's not good. These are just good opportunities to get them thinking like a scientist and talking with that science language. Okay, moving on to my next category. I guess I would call this, I don't really know what to call it. I guess educational or like introductory activities that are still academic. So the first one would be numberless math problems. And the reason why I like this is, again, it just gets them thinking and just gets them like into the math mindset. It's not about necessarily being right or wrong. It's just about unpacking the question. So I'm trying to think of one like off the top of my head. Mary decides to have a birthday party. She invites some friends from school and some friends from Girl Scouts. How many friends did she invite? And so you ask them, you're like, do you have any numbers? No. Okay, well, so we're not going to be able to get an exact amount, but what is a reasonable guess? Do we think it's like 200 people? Why don't we think 200 people is a reasonable number? Or like, could it be 200? Maybe, but is that likely? So again, it just like promotes that math discussion, just like the science talk. This is kind of just like math talk. The next one would be investigate the teacher. I have a whole other video about this, so I'm going to try not to get into it too much. You bring in 5 bags, or I guess 6, depending on how many groups you have or how many students you have. And each bag has an item or a couple items in it. So you give it to a group, they have to look at whatever items are in the bag and make an inference about you. So I remember one year I did pink paint, blue paint, and paint brushes. And they were like, you love art. You love painting. Your favorite colors are pink and blue. They just created all these different inferences. And we had a discussion. They were able to get to know me. And they were able to practice that skill, which is going to show up, you know, again and again throughout the year in ELA. Okay, my last category would be classroom. So the first one would be touring the classroom library, especially if you are an ELA teacher. But even if you're not, why not have them tour the classroom library, especially if it's an elementary classroom? So when I was an ELA teacher, independent reading was such an important part of our daily schedule, and they really had to build up that stamina. It was like such a daily thing. So I wanted to start off the year like immediately, just getting them into that routine. So I let them tour the library. I had them go like 3 at a time, 4 at a time, just look through all the books, look through all the genres. And then I gave them a worksheet that had books, and they were able to write down the books that they may be interested, books that they'd like to check out later. And then they picked one that went in their currently reading bin. So I gave them a bookmark. We established what the currently reading bin was and how independent reading would work. And then, because there's always a point in the year where they're like looking through the library and they don't really know what they want, or they're kind of overwhelmed by all the choices. So they can always refer back to this sheet too. And even if they lose the sheet, at least they did it. So there's still some memory of like what books are in there. Like they at least already went through everything. And I feel like it's better to do that at the beginning of the year than in October when you're literally about to start your independent reading and they're spending 10 minutes like perusing. Number 2, and this is a silly one. I feel bad that we're ending on this one because it's not that serious, but test run procedures. So I'll say, what do you do if you need a pencil? Or what do you do if you have to turn in a paper and they'll like act it out? Or maybe I'll like assign that to a certain group and they practice and we kind of like role play it or model it. I've also done this online with a game quiz, like a Blooket or a Gimlet, and just let them practice. That way, it's just a good way, like, you remember what the procedures are, you remember how to ask for the bathroom, and of course, you know, that's something that's going to have to be modeled throughout the year, but at least, like, you practice it one more time, like, okay, everybody together, what is the symbol for bathroom, what is the symbol for pencil, and so on. So, I think that's what I have for today. I could probably keep going, but I don't want this video to be too long. It's already like 20 minutes on my camera. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that you got some sort of inspiration or found a resource or an activity that you love. I know I've said it 100 times today, but I will leave everything linked below. And let me know if you have any activities that you love or if any of these activities really worked out for you or didn't. You could tell me that too. I'm open-minded. But anyway, I'll see you later.